Hi there, that's right, it's the great and glorious, soon to be famous one day Nick Dutch back on the camera again for another delightful tarot show. Now on this particular YouTube channel I do these broadcasts in which I just perform tarot readings for people who make inquiries. All inquiries have to be, and this is very, very serious, just by the private message section of the YouTube channel Nick Dutch Tarot, okay? I've had people like searching the internet and finding me like on other websites and trying to contact me that way for a free reading. And that basically does not make me feel happy at all. So do try and keep it down to submitting your inquiries for free readings on this particular YouTube channel as a result of private messages purely through the Nick Dutch Tarot channel. And so, what I'm going to do is get straight on with it. Still got my trusty Book of Thoth Tarot pack, been using it rather a lot today because I've had a whole string of professional commercial readings to do just before starting the show. So, let's just have a quick look and see what's coming through. As is traditional, I'm shuffling like mad right now, so we'll have a nice, good quality randomizer reading. I've already read the first inquiry for today, and it's really rather interesting. The inquirer's mother has just come back from hospital. The inquirer's mother is still very ill and shouldn't be doing any housework. The inquirer and a few other family members are trying their best to try and make sure that the mother doesn't actually have to make herself ill. The mother is taking this incredibly badly and is assuming that the offspring are taking away from her role. Well, we can have a quick look and see what the reading says about this. But before we do that, shall we just think about the situation and think about what this poor woman's going through. If you're physically ill, it affects you, not just because you can't do all the things you want to do, but it affects your mind. If your body is healing or repairing itself, then the mind will be losing some of the energy and nutrients that it needs to function. So, the lady in question is suffering. She's suffering on many different levels and in many different ways. And as a result of that, you yourself need to apply some tolerance, compassion, and understanding towards her, that she's not going to be firing on all four cylinders, and she will be looking for quick and easy ways to try and have some feeling of authority or a feeling of being in control, because that's something that would boost her ego a few notches. So, without further ado, let's see what the reading says, because all I can do is tell you what I can see, and what I can see here might disagree with what I've just told you. But let's have a quick look and see what the energies are lying basically here. A few signs for her, a few signs for yourself, and a sense of the future. Well, the signs on her side of things are actually looking really rather smug. Now, I did mention this desire to be in control, and that kind of message is coming through with the Emperor card there. A sense of someone who is trying to take an objective stance, is trying to command from the sidelines maybe, or is trying to give the orders and instructions, and getting some pleasure from that. Now, this card here, this particular minor arcana card, being the Six of Cups, is labelled pleasure, and the meaning there, although there is a loving component to it, so your mother does actually care and love you and all the rest of that, because it's labelled pleasure, we must see that as being different to happiness. Why is pleasure different to happiness? Well, you can have pleasure through getting yourself drunk and going gambling, but those things won't actually make you happy. They'll only give you a short-term bit of pleasure, followed by a massive hangover that could possibly last for a long time. And in the case of gambling, you could end up getting yourself in debt and having to try and sort yourself out psychologically, as well as having to do things to make sure you get your finances back on track. So pleasure is often there almost like a self-defense mechanism to make someone feel good about themselves when there's nothing else left. It's also detrimental, and it can appear when there's some kind of moral, intellectual, or spiritual defects that an individual is going through. So that is an expression of how sick your mother is. So you are doing the right thing through working around the house, trying to do the next right thing by her, and trying to make sure that her load is lightened. I think that's very moral and appropriate of you. The signs on your side of things, and therefore also the sides of things of the other offspring, has its good and bad components. Whenever we're dealing with people, there's always good and bad components. The good components are you want to try and create a feeling of balance when there isn't any, and you want to try and do basically what's right. There's also a sense of trying to be in your mother's good books in the longer term future, which is also quite important. but maybe there's also the feeling of if we do well now, maybe there'll be something good for us later on down the line. Not all forms of philanthropy is necessarily desirable, and often we can feel we're doing something that's right when maybe we shouldn't, so it would be worthwhile, as your mother gets better, allowing her to do many more of the various chores that she enjoyed doing that made her feel good. Alright? You will be surprised by the way that she's going to react towards you, which will be positive in the future. So I wouldn't worry about that. But she's got to get better first. Alright? Now, the longer term future, although we've seen signs of balance and adjustments on your side of things, in the sense of like the nature of the character defects on her side of things, I actually feel it's going to be quite difficult for you as your mother gets well and basically starts getting herself back on track, because the signs here is talking about an oppressive atmosphere, a sense of planning and preparation for the future, which is not going out according to plan, so do learn when to step back. But finally, a sense of real teamwork, and a sense that you're actually going to be putting in the right quality of effect to get the right quality of results throughout the entire family environment. So it is complex, not only on the internal world of your mother, but also in your own internal world and the internal world of the other members of your family. And the progression from this particular state where you've been given the authority to a position whereby you're finally getting on as a family unit again is going to be quite difficult. But you've got to embrace the change and learn when to step back. And basically, sometimes, you know, parents can just want to stew in their own juices, and if that's what they want to do, sometimes you just got to leave them to do it. They've got their own life to live and their own journey to run, and you've got to be aware of that and to allow them the pleasure and luxury of being resentful at times, which isn't easy, but we've still got to do it occasionally. Okay, we've got another inquiry, and this one is from a YouTube user inquirer whose channel name is MoonGhost100, who wants to know what kind of changes that she can expect in the future. Let's have a quick look and see basically what the reading says. The inquiry in the private message to me was much more love and relationships driven, so we'll just have a quick look out and see whether there are any major massive changes on that particular side of things as we move on through the reading. Okay, that's your short-term future, that's your mid-term future, and that's your long-term future. This is a basic chronological spread. You asked about the period of a year, so I split it up into 3. And each section is an approximate 4-month period. But funnily enough, I've not done 4 cards for each particular section. Why have I not done 4 cards? Because we're not looking at particular months. We're looking at a change in the energies throughout the whole year. So essentially the number of cards that we've got there is less important than the spacing. Are you with me? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Okay. Now, you asked predominantly about the side of things of relationships, basically, didn't you? Alright, well, let's just have a quick look. Well, we got some good news for you, and we got some bad news for you. The good news is, yes, we've got some wonderful loving signs coming in. The bad news is, that's not until the 2nd, 3rd of the year. So we're talking about over 4 months from today's date, the date when I'm uploading this reading today, for things to actually get really, red hot and squelchy, so to speak, as far as, relationships are concerned. The sensation is that that is going to happen for you. But in the meantime, there's other things going on. Now, with a lot of relationship inquiries that I get, there does seem to be a bit of a pattern emerging. Often there are other, as it were, real-life things that have to be dealt with, such as issues to do with work or property or getting more money in or gaining more stability. And funnily enough, within your very short-term future, it's a question of maintaining a sense of balance and harmony on the financial side of things. Now, if you're studying at the moment, do make sure you've got some money coming in so that you can build a relationship when it comes. The feelings that I'm getting there is much more to do with keeping in control and trying to avoid something negative. Many readers do not just sit down and say, well, look, we got something negative here, or wasn't this going to be totally scary? But I do try and be honest about what I see. There is a feeling of there being some form of stress, something that you're going to try and achieve, which you're going to receive a lot of opposition against within 3 to 5 months down the line from now. Maybe that's to do with a promotion, maybe that's to do with a particular assignment that you're working on. That would make some sense. So do expect there's going to be some obstacles. I mean, the longer term future, namely the second part of the second period, namely between 5 and 8 months down the line from now, let's say, or 5 and 9 months I should say, is very different. I mean, very good signs of financial stability, even being protected, or someone actually coming into your life for the purposes of doing you some good, financially speaking. They're not going to say, here's a wad of money, there you go, but they are going to provide you with some feeling of support in a difficult situation. Maybe like a manager who's going to protect you against a managing director, maybe. That will make a lot of sense. And also, in the early part of the year of 2011, the signs there is very calm and very tranquil. So although we've had a sense of strain, a sense of you trying to keep yourself calm, a sense of a project or something that you're working on that's going to be difficult, where you're going to have opposition, within your second period, it's more of a sense of someone coming in who's going to actually stop the opposition from occurring. So realistically, yes, you've got challenges, but doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're actually going to be up the proverbial creek without the proverbial paddle. Bottom line, I'd have to say without the shadow of a doubt, no. When we come to the longer term future, this is where I think it's quite interesting. Now, if you've got a background in tarot, you know that the cup suit often relates to love. We've had some cup signs turning up earlier on, which is pretty red hot and sexy. That's the Two of Cups, which is brilliant, okay? Especially when it comes to, you know, that sense of unity, two souls working together as one and that sort of thing. Which, funnily enough, is in the same time of the year, roughly speaking, as to when things are going to start to even out in terms of the politics about survival. But in the longer term future, can you see that okay? Alright, we've got the Princess of Cups, we got the Emperor, and we got the card for Truce, being of course the Four of Swords. So, what is that combination talking about? Out and out, a loving connection with someone you can really bond well with, a sense of community, a sense of cohesion, a sense of being one with someone who is just right for you on many different levels. Number two, a sense of you being able to have some authority within the relationship itself, and a sense of there being a good dynamic going on. Yes, this card can have some occasional negative connotations, as we've seen in the last reading, but in this particular case it's not coming through to me as a negative card or a negative sign. So in that respect it's looking okay. Another reason why it's not coming out negatively is because we've got the Four of Swords, talking about a sense of mutual agreement, a feeling of peace and balance. Sometimes that's a similar meaning to the Two of Swords, but it's not quite the same energy. There's often these occasional slight semantic differences that the reading provides. As I've said before, each card talks about some form of change or some form of energy or personality or mentality or some, well, an energy basically. And the energy or meaning of the Four of Swords does seem to bring about more of a sense of peace against the Emperor card there, and does seem to elaborate upon the feeling that things aren't going to be too bad too far down the line, especially as you've got some loving signs in the longer term future. So whoever the lucky individual is here, it looks like you've got potential to make that go strong and solid. And maybe these signs, which are interpreted as being financial and to do with work, could actually have some other forms of dimension associated with them. Alright? Are you with me there as well? Good. Brilliant. Within those areas of life, it's not looking too bad. I just don't feel that you've got this life which has always been easy. I don't think you've got this life which has always been perfectly balanced or perfectly at peace. So, you know, you've got other stuff going on there. But the end result is still looking quite positive, so I'm not really too worried either way. So look forward to the future, take it one step at a time. Alright, now we're moving on further on into the wonderful tarot show, and of course there will be many more tarot shows, so do make sure you've subscribed. We've got another YouTube inquirer, and this one is for someone called Angel Steve, and it's been pointed out that Steve is the name of her partner who's currently upstairs, so to speak. Now, Angel Steve is someone who is interested in mediumship and has already received a few messages coming through, and wants to make sure that she's going to be able to develop much more in terms of her mediumship ability with the passage of time. So, got my trusty tarot cards at the ready. Now let's see what kind of thoughts, feelings, moods and energies come through, as I often say. I know my cliches can sort of get a bit wearing once in a while, but do bear with me, alright? Okay, standard Book of Thoth reading. As this is talking about a period of time, chronological, it's again going to be a spread dealing with a long period of time. Now, I am tempted to do this like a Celtic Cross reading. Now, why would I want to do that? Because it's focusing on the individual. And as such, what we could use the reading for is to analyse how the individual is going to change with the passage of time. But I don't feel that we actually need to do that right now. So we're going to look chronologically and just see what the main message is there, okay? So we're looking out for water signs, signs of change and transformation, something to do with the other side, and to see basically what else is happening there. Okay, well, this is an intriguing reading because we don't have the traditional signs that we would associate with mediumship pure and simple. Mediumship is often associated much more with the Christian spiritualist movement than with anything else. So, typically speaking, if someone was to resonate with that kind of energy, I would assume that there would be some kind of connection to the Christian spiritualist movement. But I don't have that kind of sense here. The kind of thing that I'm seeing in this particular reading, yes, there is a sense of a concern about the other side in a very big way, because the death card has more than one meaning. I mean, obviously we're talking about transformation here, and the question is, am I basically going to transform into a good quality spiritualist or medium of some description? And of course, if the death card comes up, which basically says, yes, you personally are going to go through a period of transformation, and you're going to end up being able to do things differently or better within your own life. I know it's not a negative card, and it's not talking about people dying. It's talking about it's the sign of transformation, the ultimate level of spiritual transformation, so to speak. So on that side of things, I'll be able to turn around to you and say, yes, okay, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 card chronological spread, and that's the third card in the reading. So when will this happen for you? Before Christmas and New Year has come, definitely, possibly even sooner than that. Very strong energy around Halloween. So again, interesting time of year for that to happen. If you think about what the pagans say about Halloween, they say that that's the time of year when there is a weakening of the bond between the two worlds of the spirit and the material. So there's lots of interesting meanings happening for you during what I like to call the scary season, okay? So there is something happening for you, there is that sense of change and transformation, but what else have we got here? What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give you a negative interpretation of this. I'm going to give you a positive interpretation of this, despite the fact we have later on down the line a few negative signs. Signs relating to instability and interference. A sense of something trying to block your path. Someone is going to come into your life who's going to have a different interpretation of what spirituality is than yourself. And as a result of that, it's going to make things rather difficult for yourself. So in that side of things, I would say that you've got to learn when to keep quiet. The moment we start treading on this path of spirituality, of one form or another, we want to tell everyone. You know, we want to say, yes, I've become a witch, or I've become a spiritualist, or guess what happened to me the other night, you know, and I saw this wonderful thing and it happened and I saw a ghost and wasn't it great? But the way that the world is at the moment, not everyone is accepting or open enough to other concepts. I feel that come the spring and the summer of the year 2011, you may be coming across people who are a little uncomfortable with what you're doing. But I am seeing you still developing. I mean, there's signs around that which are related basically to the energy of love, the energy of compassion and caring for other people, a desire to improve what you're doing for other people's benefit. Yes, we all would like to be a person in the community who's there just to help other people, using our skills and our perception and our gift. And I do feel that's going to happen for you. But you have to be very selective as to how you do it. And I suppose that's the main message of later on down the line. So your short and mid-term future, that's more about gaining the skills in question. Alright, and going through that moment of transformation. The longer term future is more a question of learning how to do it and how to actually do that in a way which fits society, so that you can be with the right quality of people and make sure that you're not putting yourself into a difficult situation. And there are, of course, also those people who say they're the right sort of people but basically aren't. So you do need to have a bit of a critical eye there. But generally speaking, your skills are going to improve. So that's pretty red hot as well. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay? Alright, now I'll start shuffling again and we'll go straight on to the next reading. Just a moment, please. Alright, now we've got a YouTube user inquirer called LovePuppy16. I think we've had her before in previous shows, okay? And she's come back to inquire about a certain individual who's involved in her life, and she's feeling very interested about this, very excited, and wants to know whether this one's got potential to go long term. Now, all I can do is tell you what I can see, as is traditional, and we'll basically take it from there. Just bear with me a second, please. Now, this is going to go on to the 8-card relationship reading, and we'll just focus on his energy right now, okay? And see what kind of things are appearing for you. Alright, very interesting sense of connection there. Very interesting sense of energies as well. As far as, is there love there? Very strong. Very strong indeed. Is there stability on his side of things, mentally speaking? Not really. There's a bit of pain there inside him. A sense of wanting to be in control, but not quite knowing how to do it. A sense of, I would even say, fear and defensiveness to a certain degree. Has he been hurt by someone else in the past? Is there a sense of wanting to repel things which seem familiar in a negative manner? Alright? There are some people who might have got hurt by someone who wears, let's say, a city hat. And the moment they see someone who wears a city hat, they might sort of feel a bit repulsed. So obviously, maybe there's something small that this individual is dealing with, which goes back a long time in his life. He's not a bad man. He's not really a sick man either. And he is definitely a person who could be very loving in the future. On your side of things, turmoil. Strong desire for change, but change which turns into something solid. As you mentioned before in your inquiry, is it going to go long term, basically? But also a strong sense of desire for passionate connections. I don't feel that you felt properly connected in previous relationships, and you need something which you know is real. Now, the progress in the future, short term, mid term and long term, here we go. Short term, mid term, long term, that's the way it came out there, okay? There's still a bit of anxiety and worry in his short and mid term. He's going to stay around, he's going to stick around. We've got no signs of dramatic negative change. It's going to feel a bit hot and cold, but there's also this sense of passion, as we can tell by some of the colours there, but also a sense that maybe he's not quite being open to you. If my reading on his state of mind or his psychology is correct there, I would say that, yeah, he's got a few issues which are holding him back. But the sense of progress is still very real. Why do I say that? Now, obviously my time frames are very pessimistic. If anyone that says, you gave me a time frame of 3 months and it happened in 2 months, you must be wrong. Well, no, that means I'm right, because essentially I only ever give pessimistic time frames. The longest time frame is between 6 and 9 months down the line from now. And at that point, it's a sense of self-actualization, a sense of stability and knowing that you're in the right place. The feeling is in fact very good emotionally, and the sense is that of completion, wholeness, love and wisdom, and using your intelligence to make sure the whole connection works out perfectly. Can I suddenly turn around to you and say it is going to go long term? That's always difficult, and tarot readers do try and not give absolutes, because we want you to be in control of your own life, and we want you to make sure that you make the right decisions. There is method in our madness, okay? There is a reason for us to say what we say at times, so just be aware of that. In this particular case, because it's going to be very difficult during the short and mid-term future, I would have to say to see how it goes. You've got great potential, and there are some very good quality signs in the long-term future which you've got to be aware of. It's just going to be a bit rocky short and medium term, that's all. And at the moment, although the emotional side of things is there, the love is there, the mentality is a bit difficult. And you're craving to have this connection working, and he's basically a little afraid. So it's a difficult situation for you. It's a complex relationship, and there is some potential there. Now, with any luck, these long-term future signs, instead of happening at the very end of the time period, could actually occur much sooner. So just watch for the changes. Communication and shared experiences are essential. Alright, and that means you've got to be proactive too. It's not just up to the man. And if you want to talk to me about traditional relationships, you should hear the way that women did things in the medieval era. They were always the one who approached the men in those days. So essentially, when you say traditional, it depends on how far back you go. Alright, well that's, the sum total of readings for today, for the moment. But don't worry, I'll be doing another wonderful tarot show in just a couple of days, so don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, favourite and share. On the bottom right hand side of the screen there's usually a little button which you can use to change the resolution if you want, if this thing is not playing properly, okay, because of the way I'm uploading it. But basically don't worry about that, enjoy the show. Do make your inquiries via the YouTube channel Nick Dutch Tarot, and I will definitely look forward to speaking to you again soon. Alright?